Before we delve into these powerful stories, it's crucial to acknowledge a hard truth. The history of Bajan women has been often overlooked, overshadowed by male-dominated records that shaped what we know today. But these women existed, they resisted, they built, and they led. This is about reclaiming their stories. Women who fought against the brutal system of slavery, carved out spaces for themselves in business, defied colonial oppression through faith, and wielded influence in ways that history often fails to acknowledge. From the revolutionary leaders to the entrepreneurs, the enslaved to the free, these women shaped Barbados in ways we are still uncovering. And before I continue, I'll gotta put B in front of certain words so I don't disappear off the net. Let me continue. Nanny Grigg was a key figure in the 1816 rebellion. She was an enslaved domestic worker on Simmons Plantation in St. Philip, Barbados. Unlike most enslaved people, she was literate, a rare and valuable skill that gave her access to information that fueled her revolutionary ideas. Historian Hilary Beckles recognizes Grigg as the principal conceptualizer and ideologue of rebellion. The uprising began on Easter Sunday night, April the 14th, 1816. Grigg spread the word that enslaved people would need to fight for their freedom, advocating for tactics similar to those used in the Haitian Revolution. The rebellion quickly spread to neighboring parishes, affecting over 70 estates in its first day. However, it was short-lived. Martial law was declared on April the 15th, 1816, and the uprising was suppressed by local militia and British imperial troops. While Grigg's fate after the rebellion remains unknown, her influence challenged the notion that enslaved women were passive victims. Colonial records referred to her as an infuriated ravager, demonstrating the fear she instilled in the oppressors. Rachel Pringle Polgreen, from enslaved to entrepreneurial powerhouse. She was born around 1753 in Bridgetown, Barbados, was the daughter of an enslaved woman and William Lauder, a Scottish schoolmaster. Eventually freed by her father, she became one of the first free black women entrepreneurs in Barbados. Her most famous business was the Royal Naval Hotel, a high-end establishment in Bridgetown, catering primarily to British naval officers and wealthy merchants. By the time she died on July the 23rd, 1791, Polgreen owned several properties and several individuals who were enslaved, 6 of whom she freed in her will. It goes without saying that her story is complex, illustrating both the possibilities and moral compromises faced by free women of color in colonial Barbados. Sarah Ann Gill, the Methodist warrior. Now, if faith was a battleground, Sarah Ann Gill was one of Barbados's fiercest warriors. Born in 1795, Gill was a freed woman of color in a time when religious freedom was under attack in Barbados. She became a devout Methodist, which put her at odds with the ruling planter class, who saw Methodism as a threat because it preached spiritual equality, a direct challenge to the plantation system. In 1823, Methodist chapels were attacked and destroyed by white mobs, encouraged by planters. In response, Gill took a bold step. She opened up her own home as a place of worship, making it the center of Methodist resistance. She faced constant threats, property destruction, and legal challenges, but she never backed down. Eventually, the colonial authorities had to back off, and her efforts ensured the survival of Methodism in Barbados. Because of her unwavering courage, she was recognized as a national hero of Barbados in 1998. Her story is a reminder that resistance doesn't always have to come with swords and fire. Sometimes it comes with faith and an unshakable will. Everyday resistance of enslaved women. Not every act of resistance was a rebellion, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a fight. So enslaved women in Barbados weren't just laborers. They were the backbone of the sugar industry. They resisted in ways history barely acknowledges, from slowing down work to preserving cultural traditions. Susannah Mingo and Elizabeth Atkins were enslaved mothers on Rendezvous Plantation in Barbados during the 17th century. They both bore children to John Pearce, the plantation owner, while he was married to his first wife, Hester. Their stories represent the complex and often exploitative relationships between enslaved women and plantation owners, as well as the vulnerability of enslaved women on Barbadian plantations. And then we have Dorothy, who was a white servant at Rendezvous Plantation, who also had children with John Pierce. Prolific, innit? Her story illustrates the diverse experiences with women in colonial Bajan society, where even white servants could become involved with plantation owners, adding yet another layer to the complex social dynamics of the time. These women's experiences highlight the painful reality of sexual exploitation that many women faced, while also demonstrating the ways in which some managed to negotiate their way to freedom, securing their children's futures, or reclaiming even some level of power. A difficult but undeniable part of the history of survival. Margaret Brathwaite, the power of literacy. She was born around 1790 and was a freed woman of color. At a time when most Black people were denied education, she was literate, a powerful tool for resistance. She used hymns with abolitionist messages woven through them, proving that even faith and education could be used as weapons against oppression. Betsey Goodwin was an influence in the shadows. Now, Betsey understood how to work the system. Her relationship with Governor George Ricketts gave her a rare kind of influence for a woman of color in colonial Barbados. She reportedly used that connection to advocate for prisoners and push humanitarian causes. While some might see her as a privileged free woman, she was proof that power could be wielded in many forms, even in the shadows. From Nanny Grigg's revolution to Rachel Pringle Polgreen's economic empire, from Sarah Ann Gill's religious defiance to the quiet resistance of countless enslaved women, these women paved the way for future generations. Their struggles, sacrifices, and triumphs led to the Barbados that we see today, where women like Mia Amor Motley could rise as the country's first female prime minister. But this history isn't just something to admire. It is something to continue. The fight is not over. So we gotta stop saying that it was just yesterday and we need to forget about him. Let us today and every day call out we base story, loud, proud, and unshakable. Don't forget to share the word do and let me know your thoughts below. I gonna talk to one later in the next Let We Call Out We Base story.